could you imagine our state, people be, which is not supposed to be. You see? So naturally, the accountable person here is the chair or the supervisor, directly or indirectly, the leadership.
In fact, there was and she had those leadership. We're going to do more interviews. That was the only thing she could say.
Wow. No solution?
Nope. Still
No budget?
She's there instead of Nora, and she talked a lot of bad words about Nora, and yet she has no other solution other than what she has to say.
Well, good for Nora because she
She
declared.
still won't actually do anything. She's pretty sad.
She declared a crisis, and the county did never
Yeah, they never did.
follow it up, pursue it, like the city. I was there when the council people, Rivera, and there was appeal. They were talking about whether to declare crisis or no crisis, and Campillo said, I suggest that we do not declare crisis because of unintended consequences, such as money to be spent for prescription care.
All right, hey you guys, I'm Audra Morgan of the Storm. I'm here at Sandag Committee and was outside to see if they had posted the agenda, which they haven't, so they haven't properly noticed this meeting, just like they didn't at the Chiefs and Sheriffs meeting. Sorry, I could get in touch with legal. I told the security so she could, you know, she's helping to go get them, but technically they can't run the meeting. And they've never noticed it out here. So it's like all of this board has been running illegally the entire time. But, you know, we're supposed to be upheld to a different standard, which is fair, right? So let's see what happens.
Yeah, the order page where it says
because everything that they're going to do here today will be null and void.
Even if it's canceled, we are here.
For the Chiefs Sheriffs meeting?
No.
That's what you're looking at is the Chiefs Sheriffs Management Committee agenda, which is different from today's.
Yeah, today.
But did you attend that meeting also? Because I can check on that as well.
I will double check. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh, he was looking for
here.
minutes, but I think that was the wrong meeting.
I do not know, but correct me. But you know, we are.
You're trying.
Every meeting but that one. I understand that.
See, the draft. See, I do.
I actually did.
I know you do.
I don't understand what? No.
So this is
Mario.
I do remember there was a meeting that you guys weren't at. I don't know if it was this one, but it was fairly recently.
Hi.
But I will double check.
Good
I'll
morning.
see what comments
There is a
and then I'll
problem.
correct it if
But
it's-
I want to document this because this is important. So you guys are not
All right, let
noticing
me
the
double
meetings
check on that and then I'll
correctly
let
under
you
the
know.
Brown Act.
Yeah, of course.
And
Mario, I think they're discussing it.
I understand, but this meeting can't continue because you're not noticing it properly. So everything that you will be doing will be run illegally.
let me go in.
Sure.
They're discussing it.
I know, but he needs to he's the CEO. Like everybody should know this because that's inappropriate and illegal. See how people want to hide? He's like, oh, don't put me on camera. You're already on camera.
Because it's here. In our beginning to office 19. Here.
See, the problem is that they like to continue.
Delmar, city manager will write a letter to
Despite, like in spite of, I mean, it's like they're whatever. So we'll see what happens.
cities. We have alcohol, lemon grove, Lamesa, and Poet. Yeah, the rest we have attended. Vista,
I would be very surprised if they canceled it.
before we have something like that. Anyway. Only this case is more.
Executive Committee meeting is called to order. First, I'd like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Good morning. To use the interpretation feature, please control bar. Click on the interpretation icon, World, and select English as your language. Mobile app, cell phone, tablets, etc. Please press the assistant interpretation and select your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Exits are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días. Para solucionar el uso de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, luego pegarlo y seleccione Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos de la interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés del fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, Digueño, the Luiseño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the Sanday community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now please stand and join me in the flag salute. Ready? Begin. Michael, can you please confirm quorum?
We have a quorum, Chair, with City of San Diego absent.
Okay, can you please start calling on agenda public comment, Michael? How many do we have?
Thank you. If you're online, please raise your hand now. We have 4 in person and we have 1 online, Chair.
Thank you.
We'll start with Truth, followed by Priya Javier.
In PRA number 26-15, records requests are being withheld. Disclosure of employee ID photos would create significant privacy and safety concerns for public employees. Stevens, Associate Legal Counsel. That sounds reasonable, but it's not, because 1, I require that information for public safety purposes. 2, visually identifying who works for the public is a necessary public record, as evidenced in SB 707. And 3, I already have photos of every employee in this room, and if I want to post it online with their names, job titles, and salaries, I can. So their privacy is already non-existent in a public role. So be advised that this is a case I can easily sue and win. Specifically regarding Manuel Plomegue's illegal public doxing of myself that occurred in this room on May 1st, I'm likely going to file a discrimination report. Here's how to fix things. 1, security protocols need to change. If a board member is openly hostile to the public like Manuel is, I want them banned from using the public entry/exit, or at least to have security protect the public from hostile board members, because otherwise SANEC opens itself to lawsuits for creating a hostile and discriminatory environment. 2, SANEC's code of conduct needs to include a provision specifically against harassment. 3, SANEC needs to stop doxing the last 3 to 4 digits of people's phone numbers, as this is personally identifiable information. Do you not see the hypocrisy of withholding public employees' photos only refer to people by the name they used to sign up to speak with? 4, SANEC needs a separate room to hold closed sessions, because not only could you remove the risk of leaks, but wholly expect anyone who gets subpoenaed to testify with nothing. Entity that retaliated against me simply for speaking out is also the one who boycotted Bike Anywhere Day just for political union brown nose.
Next is Parita, followed by Caesar.
senior with existing Medicaid, we are with you to share lessons learned from our community bounded by City San Diego, District 9 and 4, under the leadership of Councilor Sean Rivera and Council Siller Henry Foster, respectively. The geographic, political boundaries like ours at West Bank of Hoyas Creek represent disadvantaged community. Per observation, one witness is the failing of programs such as physical development on shelter, mobility, transportation, roads, streets, amongst other services in our community. Through have at least 8 concerns. One is the location, construction, and
Thank you, Sander. This is all about survival of man and society. From conception to grave, good governance demands healthy planet, healthy people. We have unseen enemy to defeat environmental hazards. The air we breathe, water we drink, food we eat. And by God, this essential survival kit is controlled by Mayor Todd Gloria. APCD taken out from the county. Water is chaired by Mr. Serrano, staff of the city mayor's office. The food we eat, Councilor Rivera worked out to ensure that seniors have discounts without even studying the quality of that food or grocery being asked for this discount. We face. Here is our community. Number one issue here is toxicity from neighborhood business. It reminds us that APCD is all about business. Big businesses such as treatment plants, they can go in and out to investigate, but they did never lay a hand to investigate next door's home business. Why? From big businesses to determine emissions, but never in us, even if we offered our property for their establishment of monitoring investigation. They went there, they didn't smell anything. Why? Because the operation is not ongoing. Director
Thank you. Your
Colby
time has
said,
expired.
when it
Next
operates,
is
call
allegedly
us.
Aldra, followed by Paula Bold online.
Thank you, Sander.
This meeting is being ran illegally. I informed you guys, you refused to even come and talk to me about it, where you're saying you're going to talk to your legal team, and now you're claiming that it is being run legally, which everything you're going to be doing today is going to be null and void. You guys do not properly notice these meetings. It has to be posted outside of the room before people come in. You have never done that. So not only is what you are doing here illegal today, I would go as far as to say every time you have had a meeting or a committee or anything like that, you have ran it illegally, so it is all null and void. And the arrogance of you to sit here and blatantly continue knowing that. You guys think that you are untouchable, and that to violate the law, and you want to hold us to a higher standard and make a meeting correctly. This meeting should not have ever started. You should have started with, we cannot continue today. We have to come back another time. But instead, you move forward blatantly and willfully, negligently. And this is why you can't be trusted with anything that you do. We pay you a pretty penny and legal to tell you. And I'm sick and tired of it because it's happening at boards all across San Diego. And the way that you guys treat us, I was assaulted at a meeting for speaking the truth, and you guys can't even be trusted to follow the law. You should not continue this meeting. And the fact that you are going to means I'm going after everything that you guys have done to make it null and void.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Try me.
Next is Paul DeBold online. Last public comment. Go ahead, Paul.
Good morning, Paul DeBold. Hope that the lines on the screen which popped up last board meeting is not broadcasting speakers' phone numbers. They deserve privacy, not phone calls which are unwanted or threatening their family. Downtown Stopover is the 1200 Street, and State Street. It is within the fault zone, 2 blocks north, 1 block west of Sandag headquarters, which is also in the fault zone. According to the Geological Survey, the fault line, an offshoot of the Ross Canyon Fault called the San Diego Fault, runs through 305 West A Street, the northeast corner of the downtown Stopover, and actually right across Columbia Street from Sandag Head. And maybe it's time to beef up your building and look for an alternative to the present downtown Stopover site. But quick, the bus drivers need a clean place to go pee and relax. It may be more practical to just rent a place for this for now, as Mrs. Maxon suggested. And there's a website, maps.conservation.ca.gov. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, Waymo auto taxis are shown on videos speeding up and down an Atlanta street where children might be playing and also congregating at the end. A whole neighborhood. Hope nothing like this happens here. Especially dangerous for kids and seniors, and I hope you put stronger restraints on your Waymo. Besides,
thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comment on this chair.
That is freely accessible if the agency has one. So I believe Sandag posts on the website as well as the Toll Operations Center, which is open 24 hours to the public.
Thank you. Okay, right now we are going to move on to member non-agenda comments. Do we have any? I see none. Let's go to consent. I'll turn it over to Mario.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to let the exec committee that on May 22nd, we received a request to be at the Joint Legislative Audit Committee for the California Legislature. There was a request to audit Sandag. The issues that were being brought up was, have we delivered our Transnet One program? where we use the mitigation or the lagoon restoration and appropriate function for the North Coast Corridor project. And there was also, if we're reporting our SB1 and our SHOP program funds, or using them appropriately. The concerns were raised by Assembly Member DeMaio. He was very gracious of his comments also towards the agency of all what we're working jointly on the agency currently. We brought up that what was delivered on Transnet 1. We do not use SHOP funds at Sandak, that's exclusively for the state. We do the reporting on SB1, and the North Coast Corridor was actually under statute. What was the mitigation that should be happening there? Also following the NEPA and CEQA documents that actually are led by Caltrans, not Sandak. So the vote was to not audit Sandak, but I think something that was highlighted that was very important is, like I said, and also by Mr. DeMaio, is the work that we're all doing and the mechanisms that Sandak has in place to oversight. OIPA, the audit committee, the ITOC, the audits FDA does on us, the oversight Federal Highways does on us, Caltrans, CTC, among some of the agencies that audit a lot of the concerns that were brought up. So I just wanted to let you know, we traveled, Don Batiste and myself, to the joint committee. We testified together with Mr. DeMaio and the
Thank you, Mario. Consent comments, please, Michael?
Thank you. If you're in line, want to comment on consent agenda, please raise your hand now. In person we have 3, and online we have 2. Truth, followed by Caesar. Please state the consent agenda item you're speaking to.
Thanks for convincing me that this is a rate. 3.1 on the minutes. I don't think the county's ever actually been mentally present. Not today, not ever. Item 3.2, the June 26th agenda seems like too many discussion items, because you know item 6 on experimental fairs is going to be a long conversation, because again, fraud is going on. And add onto the 2 conversations about cities fighting for projects, that's going to be way too long for my taste. Item 3.3, SB 108's increased demands from CARB. I can't wait for more totalitarian dictatorship, because as long as we the people have a few extra days to tell them how much we hate everything they do, at a cost of an extra $9 million a year, we can just keep this climate cult charade up until there's no cars left on the roads as Xanax communist dreams. Again, on pervert Scott Wiener, there's no delaying nor compromising with evil. It's 100% resistance on your feet, not on your knees, especially for Republicans who've been consistently weak for decades. The Sacramento swamp full of wannabe kings and queens, and mostly queens, does not care how your community is affected by SB 79's 8-foot towers, or the shunning of public transit, or the increased congestion, nor do they care about AB 2296 and the rigged arena housing quota game to force cities to get ugly, expensive stack effects to cost more of the same, because it's all about what they want, and there's no negotiating with terrorists. On political Peter Pizer, when referring to the transit and multimodal advocacy community, Pizer just means lobbyists, right? The trade relevant in 2023 in East Palestine, Ohio. Remember when Biden didn't care and never even visited the area? What fun times those were. New EV and hybrid registration fees is a new highway trust fund, more fun. I wonder what a $20 billion rural ferry is. And Sean Duffy said DOT is repurposing funds from California's failed high-speed rail into local rail crossings where it will actually save lives. It's wonderful. Imagine if Sandag actually did that.
Please state the consent agenda items you are speaking to.
3.1. Neglect. Our names were not there. Minutes of yesterday give us hope and process and look back. We dream, however, that the minutes shall be a robust discussion on subjects about crisis, such as Javier family's toxicity, and the huge Tijuana border pollution. 3.2, 3.3 are processes. We were delighted, heard discussions on this. In fact, that gives us more encouragement to be with you, share ideas, learn from each other. In fact, we support city of the region. 4 or 5 more are to be joined in a given opportune time. And we discovered along these processes one sterling wealth of knowledge. Councilor Tracy Martinez of Del Mar exploded the support to us, and the city, through the city manager, will write a letter to the county concerning all about this, not only on mobility, but community sustainability, particularly air quality. Thank you, Sanday.
Next is Electric Audra, followed by Paul the Bold Online. Please state the consent agenda item you're speaking to.
Doesn't really matter because you're running this meeting illegally. You ran that meeting. Bullshit on what you're saying, because it's not past security where you come in and sign up that you have to notice the people. It is outside of there, and you know it, and you are blatantly lying. And you guys are all engaging in fraud. You are the ones that should be in jail, not people who are trying to survive, who went and took a couple watermelons and now are charged with felonies. You guys should be charged with felonies. You engage in fraud, waste, and abuse with every penny of ours. And we pay you to do it. And you can't even look up because you guys know that you're wrong. Face. It's like in your face, people. We're going to continue to blatantly do these things, waste your money, come after you for more while you're just begging for scraps, trying to survive while these people sit up on a dais and blatantly violate the law, but expect us to uphold it. Law enforcement is doing it. You guys are doing it. And then if anybody questions you, you don't like it. And you don't want it to be transparent. We should be having this conversation in front of the people, yet you couldn't even come back to me and talk to me about it because you know you're wrong. So FAFO, let's fucking go.
Next is Paul the Bold Online, followed by Blair Beekman. Please state the consent agenda item you're speaking to.
Legislative status. As noted, federal funding picture looks bleak. Transportation for America calls the pending transportation funding bill an extension of the status quo, which is failing to deliver on our core priorities of safety, sedative repair, and making substantial investments beyond new highways. State report. I note that CARB is estimating costs of $8 to $9 million yearly to do its job under SB 1087, which promotes transparency and the use of meaningful data and setting things like GHG goals. This is ridiculous. Do we need CARB? 3.2, review of agendas. December's here, time for a long break and no meetings for a while. Woohoo! Huge uncertainties surrounding the federal transportation budget with multiple funding issues and clawbacks noted in the last legislative report. And today's report suggests that transit and rail funding might be decreased a whopping 41%. This item 3.6 merits a full discussion and should be a separate item on the discussion agenda. Item 3.5 has to do with a similar state-funded transportation, and I would suggest also giving it a full discussion. I know that both the feds and state are correct, especially the feds.
Speaking to.
I think all three on the mainly the meeting minutes. On the meeting minutes from last time, you had an item of a legislative status report, and quite a brief one, by the way. If I didn't say that clearly. Happy June and happy election time to everyone. I wanted to comment that on the legislative status report that I've been talking a lot about how we can be working a future of ARGIS, where to kind of delegate data collection to the Jayhawks area more for like issues of like undocumented and things like that. In working with Oakland a lot lately, I'm really getting into how they're working and just following along their programs because they're doing such incredible work with block issues and how to slowly separate from block, with community effort and activity. And with that, they are working on a way to leave, have undocumented be accountable in the massive data collection centers, in the main data collection. And so I have to kind of change my tactics and how to talk about what I think the future of ARGIS should be, I think, and to respect that. And to note that we really work on issues with CLEPS a lot already. And all sorts of how to address the undocumented in our data collection in the future. And I'm really hearing what Audra is saying, and it's really important to have a public notice available somewhere. That within the building, because you're in a new building, maybe you can put it at the county or City of San Diego offices.
There. Sure.
Thank you. Any member comments on consent? Supervisor Aguirre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question for staff on item 3.3 of the legislative report regarding the decreased funding for 41% overall decreased funding as it relates to the House Transportation Appropriations Bill. I read that transit and rail are going to be decreased. Can staff just broadly talk about the impacts that will have on our regional transportation plan?
We can speak at high level, sort of program by program, based on sort of past use of the programs that they're proposing to cut. The biggest one is the federal-state partnership for intercity rail, which is one of the bigger rail-focused funding programs. It's pretty flexible in the types of projects it can apply to. It's certainly envisioned for some of our sort of future funding aspirations for projects that are yet to be at that point. I would also note that the CRISI program, which is another rail-focused, safety-oriented program, is also significantly reduced. In terms of how it would affect specific projects or programs that we have planned, I think it's a little difficult to sort of pinpoint specific implications beyond the corridors that we apply those funds to, just because we haven't envisioned what the applications we would apply to future grant opportunities would be. I don't know if Mario has sort of a high-level expectation in terms of what may end up down the road.
The first cut from Congress is now on the Senate side, and it's going to go back and forth, even through probably a transition in Congress. So what we have seen in prior bills, when they're being renewed, the transportation bills, they're probably gonna go for a 6 month to a year continuous resolution while the details are being hashed out. And I think that's where the different agencies and advocacy against and in favor of different subjects, including transit, will be coming up. Don, do you have any other info?
Yes, you're asked specifically about implications to the regional plan.
I can't hear you.
Once we have a regional plan adopted, when things like reauthorization are going through, they don't get addressed in our regional plan until the next regional plan cycle, and it will assumptions in our regional plan. We do use historic, rates of, success on things like the competitive program to make assumptions moving forward on the revenues moving forward. But the existing regional plan doesn't get touched related to that. The future regional plan would.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, because I know some advocates have been concerned, and rightfully so, right? They're nervous that these cuts are coming. They just wanted to know, how, when, and by how much it's going to impact some of the specific projects that they may be focused on. So just as a reminder, when's the next iteration? When do we approve that? 2029. We're already working on it, I know, but it wouldn't come back to us until 2029. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
May I have a motion and a second, please, for...
I'm happy to move.
Second Vice Chair.
Sorry, I guess you see me here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just before we go on, I do want to talk a little bit more about that posting of the agenda, because the place where, not just online, but the place where, I'm sorry, I forget her name, where is it that it is posted for the public?
I'll defer to the city clerk, but I believe it's the Toll Operations Center.
Okay, where is the Toll Operations Center?
It's in Otay Mesa. and what the team is going to be working is trying to post here. The building has not allowed us to post. And we will become very active talking to them. We checked the Brown Act. We were checking and saying posting it in a public location accessible to the public. That's we have building administration to post also in this building.
Okay, that was what my concern was, is that, and you know what, I do appreciate you bringing this up, because we've talked about it at my council before, and the bulletin board is the most likely place to put one if we can get one. And I think we should work very diligently with our management team here, because now I guess maybe a question is, can people without a key or a card key even enter this building at nighttime at any time?
No.
Do we know?
No. Into the lobby?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, because that's what I think is problematic here, because even if we put it in the lobby, 72 hours ahead of time, that still doesn't actually comply, in my opinion, with the Brown Act. And I think
so we will be working with building management, maybe posting on the walls, even putting on a bulletin board on our side, but facing the window, so people
read though.
Yeah, we'll try to comply with. But we will begin that conversation, but checking with the council. Technically, like you said, we did comply by posting it in our other. But it's clear it. Put any questions on it.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm happy to second the motion to approve the consent calendar. Just one brief comment. One other thing that I'd recommend legal counsel take a look at is, my understanding is there was a change to the Brown Act, which also requires a public area for translations of the agenda to be posted at the agency as well. So it's like a public bulletin board. It's
there's one central place that they have like city council agendas and things like that, maybe be there too. And the rule is, that's correct.
There's also a section in SB 707, which is the amendment to the Brown Act that relieves the local agency of liability for errors in translation if the public posts wrong translations. So,
okay, all in favor of approving the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, that passes unanimously. All right, we're going to now move on to internal controls update. Shanae, please go ahead.
So, good morning. As of May 31st, 2026. Before we dive into today's data, I want to acknowledge a similar structure to last month's report. And in the future, reports will look different and reflect the feedback from our previous times, highlighting progress. To assure you, I've heard I am working to integrate them into strategic changes we're making internally to our corrective action plan process, which I will detail a little bit at the end of the presentation. But I do need a little more time to integrate all of that work, so I anticipate the next quarterly report will look different and be reflective of the new process that we're implementing. In the interim, I do want to keep you informed in real time about recommendation implementation progress. As a reminder, the recommendation review process to address the recommendation and present it to this committee. As for the data, as of May 31st, 2026, there have been 31st. We have implemented recommendation status by audit. I want to highlight a few items. All of the 2018 Transnet recommendations, so the recommendations from that audit are completed in full. For the Transnet 2021 recommendations that were due through May 31st, we have implemented all of those. There are 6 recommendations remaining in total for that 2021 audit. 3 of the recommendations we are presenting to ITOC.
Why does there need to be an internal assessment of HR? Has something gone wrong? The discussion questions don't make sense. On number 3, what is staff training preview be available to the public? Because that's who you're actually talking to. Why would you need the training ahead of time? Do we get to be part of the training? On number 4, to see the open audits and the current progress of audits, or is resourcing a budget question? A real-time counter showing the tax dollar consumption of SANDAG and its required audits would be useful. What controls are being implemented for out-of-control projects like the $30 million plus in Grove Avenue Bikeway or the $92 million youth trafficking opportunity program? Because last meeting we had a very non-transparent game being played all around. Antoinette said it's not a pilot because we changed the funding mechanism. Oh really? Who ran that by the public and board first? Susan said we worked out an arrangement with the transit agencies. It's like, whoa, 100% external controls there. So who's really in control of this board? Is it staff? Is it the CEO? Because last I checked, it's allegedly supposed to be we the people who control what project.
I'd like to continue this conversation because that is still a violation. That is not proper notice. In fact, that we've done. And the public has to be able to access that. So for you to give a bullshit answer and be like, it's down with the toll operations center. This is why nobody knows who the frick you guys are. Because you hide into being able to notice a public meeting. And you guys are run the meeting anyway, even though it's null and void. And that means when it's like, yeah, when we want to do this, we're going to say, fuck you anyway. We don't need your consent.
A substantial, and it looks like a substantial number of recommendation corrections are due, but are pretty disgusting. I mean, slide 6 shows over the last 3 months. Not closing them like we tend to do. Slide 7 shows less unimplemented old recommendations. Only 5 how much 4-year-old risk there is at SANDAG. contract venue or something of that nature.
Thank you. Your time has expired. The last public comment is phone number ending in 8813.
In the near future, brother. Anyways, okay, yeah, just the name, you have Sandex presents itself. Internal controls is what we're talking about, right?
Any lessons learned from what you, like, what is any lessons learned from what you, like, what is actually happening within, that's going to take time. Some of the adjusting and adapting strategic and concerted quarter, some of them, the systems of what I want to start focusing on, area of impact, area of effort, and then any other. I think it would be a good idea for the board and the committees to take it, because the three roles relate to individual important, and we all have a space and a role in implementing them, and then there's
describing what the rules specifically are. Is that where that would fit in, or could this be standalone?
Policies and how we're with the training, but also something that resonated in one of the past meetings. I think Mayor Duncan brought it up. You know, bring in the heart. It's a hypothetical one, saying fix X, and that X is going to take us a lot of resources, and it's going to take us 24 months. Well, we're envisioning months because it's going to clear more things. I think we're going to work on colliding the policy discussion, the internal controls, and the different items that we're looking, and prioritize recommendations are now we're going to have a more robust conversation, not on a go no go. 75% or a no-go, because strategically we could do something else to address.
Yeah, I didn't plan on it, but you raised some questions for me and some thoughts on that, on how to implement things, solutions, the input outside of board meetings from members of the board of directors. Because, for instance, if I call in and I'm asking, well, I think that should be captured in some way, because except for the individual response that's around the table would have a similar concern unless it's talked about. And since we are charged with really creating the board policy and whatnot, I think it's important for us to at least get the same similar information, or also in some way, I would think.
I think where we're trying to want to let you know where we are with the cases, there sensitive information, indications that
I appreciate going on. We should. I certainly hate putting more on your plate, but that is probably something that contact records management system. That's easy because you click on a button and it shows response, and that could be part of it. That there's 30 and shows response, and that could be part of it. That there's 30 inquiries, 25% of them were addressed, and 5 of them we couldn't find answers for. Something like that, if that makes sense. You might want to think, and I don't want to put you in that.
Initial response is that is the purpose of the quarterly. The decisions that we're making, intake that information, go initial thought.
Okay, thank you.
Your supervisor.
Thank you, Shani, for that answer, because I was thinking exactly the same thing. That is literally the purpose of our open meetings, is to have these discussions in front of the public on the record so that there's no issues of transparency. Think about that, when I was mayor and IB, is if one council member had to share the information with all of the council, so there wasn't a perception of advantage to any one council member. But here during our Brown Act meetings, and for the public to have input about the qualitative information. So let's say you say we corrected 28 actions that had been identified in the audit. Yes, and what outcome will that have? You know what I mean? So the quantitative and the qualitative, I think,
The benefit to the agency in the process.
absolutely, and to the public, right? The transparency purposes is important too. So thank you.
I appreciate that observation and will happily oblige to do the quality.
Great, thank you. Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Shanae, for everything that you've told us today, because I do think it's very informative. I do have a question on the higher risk and put us in a very bad position. I'm wondering, is there a way are more of a major exposure? So I'd be hoping that we're looking at that to see if there's that Mario knows exactly at all times everything that's going on in these different silos, and if there are small, where you could just say, well, we could do this thing, or this one person might move to different departments. Sometimes it's even that. I know we in San Marcos to say that, to make it less silo-y. I know that's not a word, it's a Rebeccaism, but to make it less silo-y, where people are actually coordinating better, and again, it creates those efficiencies. And then on the timing of the training, on the training, I think that, and I like that idea, because if you forget something, you could go back. We have a lot of things pinging around. We've got our organizations, and then we have, CINDIC as well on top of that. So I like that idea. Again, so just trying to figure out how to speed up on those higher exposure items. And I like everything that we're doing so far, though. I do have to bring it up. On slides that are missing from the presentation, slide 14, it would be really helpful. I didn't see an email, but I might have missed it. I've been kind of busy this week. Just a mention of, hey, there's a new slide in the presentation. I try to get and I can't remember what day I printed this, to be honest. This week has been just having, a mention of, hey, there's a new slide to item number this, and
I am looking at things such as, does it require to take a little more time? Contingent upon precursor activities. So that was a question that I heard from Chair Huebner in one of the previous meetings. Do we address some of the recommendations? So level of effort there, effort in terms of cost, and what cost of effort in regards, is this something that 1 to 2 staff can do? Is this something that 10 staff can do, or do we need kind of like a hefty group to get it accomplished? So those are the efforts.
So I just, once you have the answers to those questions, what does that do to your prioritization?
So basically, I've got it where it's calculating a score. So that's effort score relative to the likelihood score. In terms of Six Sigma, it's called a pick chart. It's gonna kind of give a go, no go, high commitment, kind of what's the resourcing, how do we want to do this, do we want to proceed, etc. That's kind of how I'm envisioning it at the moment.
I think, Mayor, it's gonna help for on a
So if it's more likely or easier, not easier in a bad way, but if it's more likely effort-wise we can get it forward, that's a criteria that might move it up the list, right? That's the understanding. Yeah. At project management, right?
Correct.
So the one thing, first of all, I like your report and I support the work you're doing. I think you're obviously clearly very bright, so I enjoy the work you're doing. The question I have is, when I go through the report, and maybe I'm partially missing it, I do see the different categories and things, but in just like a colloquial way to describe somebody, to the chair's question about how on the next fiscal year, you know, things like that. So I'm just curious if you have or maybe it's too hard because we're doing little pieces of all the different ones, but I was interested in your feedback, so I'm adding that.
Yeah, so 2 things. I need to do a better job in my reports, because that's one of the things that I was looking to highlight in terms of looking at the themes where we've kind of made progress. And then 2, hearing, that's the kind of feedback that I need to hear, so that when I bring further reports other reports forward, I can pull out those things that are of great importance to this committee. So the project management items, you know, invoicing items, I can start kind of pulling that out and highlighting, good or bad, where we stand on those. So I'm intaking that information, and we'll try to kind of calibrate the reports accordingly. So
is it within the scope of the project? Is it within schedule? Trying to now focus, and that's where eventually in the near future Clint will come in, Clint Pease will come in and show you that's how he's starting to track that. We now have a unit within his group that's specifically tracking contracts of projects and going, how you doing with your budget? How you doing with, and putting a lot of filters and controls and dashboards on it. So, but I think if you summarize it, it was controls within contracts, then you go within the projects, capital projects, and tracking the scope, schedule, and budget of it. I hope I didn't go too deep in.
No, it's very clear. I understand sometimes preliminary things have to be done before you can do other things. I just would say, when if you harken back, for those who are here, like the toll road and the proper performance and in the project management, we had as well. And really, that stuff was way, in the opinion of the board and myself, was not happening remotely properly. I like the information, you know, I appreciate the information, and hopefully the feedback's a little.
All right, this is Councilmember Downey.
I just had a couple questions. I appreciate the report greatly, but I'm trying to understand the charts that you put up were basically on audit findings. So what Mayor Minto suggested doesn't have anything to do with an audit. That has to do with. So how do you separate those, which we need to track? People need to be able to make suggestions, but that's different the way, the format that you gave us. And not that we don't want that, but I'm trying to figure out, because as somebody mentioned, we're worried about the high risk things that are on that we should get done as soon as we can. So how do you think that fits into what your job and your department's tracking, and how?
All of that is integrated. So whenever I am sitting in front of this body, if there is a concern, an area of interest, an area of focus that you would like to have brought to my attention, this is the form at this moment to do so. So I would encourage any feedback outside of recommendations included, because it's all informative to the work that I'm doing. Conversations, I'm also making observations, I'm also looking at best practices.
Report. I like seeing the audit findings, because let's face it, we want to get them all done, be all caught up, so that doesn't have such a huge impact on us. Audit findings, but then separate out what isn't part of that.
All right, good discussion. No vote on this, so we'll move on to our next item, which is our board policies and the work plan for our board policies, and Teddy will be giving you that presentation.
Hi everyone, Teddy Lowe, General Counsel for SANDAG. I'm going to be talking about some board policy review and a proposed modernization plan for the agency. So I'm going to go to my first slide. I don't know if you all remember, but my first week here, welcome 4 days in, was asked to look at this after you kind of, sat back a little bit, got a little more familiar with the agency, had some time to take a look at the board policies and provide an update on those, what you found. So I'm kind of coming back with some preliminary findings, solutions, and a long-term plan to kind of move forward as a more nimble SANDAG. The thing I found in looking at this stuff was the board policies as a whole, it's unusual and it's pretty bloated. And I'm going to give the lawyers in the room and everyone this is SANDAG's bylaws and board policies. I'm going to give you about a couple of inches. It's about 400 plus pages and 40 plus board policies. And the board policies go into excruciating detail about every little thing staff has to do on things. And I'll tell you why that gets a little bit difficult. But you're saying, okay, well, that's SANDAG's board policies, 400. So I said, I'm going to do a little bit of extra research, and what are other agencies kind of doing? Well, come back from my former place of employment, LA Metro. This is their board policies. It's about a hot 40 pages. You say, oh, well, that's LA Metro. How about somewhere else? This is BART's policies, probably about 50 pages. Pretty big agencies, right? And then you're saying, oh, well, how about an MPO? This is SCAG's, just north of us here, about 40 pages. So, dive on these things. You get these other board policies kind of give the kind of overall guidelines, like, hey, this agency is going to have this many board members, and you're going to do this, and you're designating certain authority to the CEO, and this is the intent of the board, handing it down to the CEO and staff to do. That's kind of what board policies should kind of do and bylaws should do. SANDAG's policies, literally, if you go it tells you the definition of what a contract is. It tells you every little step that staff has to do to send out a procurement. I've assisted in, that's kind of not what board policies should be, and that's just one example of board policies. There's a legal section about literally how to serve Sandag, how to file a claim against Sandag. There's a policy there that's never been utilized in the manuals. So you have bylaws that set, and I'll go to it, you have bylaws that talk about the constitution of things, and then it's like the overall thing. And then you have the policies that talk about internal manuals that talk about it, and then you have administrative things, and you have directives. And it's not anything that one person or this current, people who are here have done. It's just that this is kind of how it's done, and then someone goes, well, we need to change that and change that. The problem is you have duplication risk, right? I'll go to it, but you have this granulation of detail after detail, and then there's a blurring of lines where, okay, you have two different things talking against each other. What actually takes? So, moving on to the next slide, and this kind of goes to my recommendation about different things, is that, part of it, and I'll go to it, is that to get anything changed in board policy, we have to come back to the board for those changes. And you're like, well, that's great. The board wants to do it happen. You have to agendize it. The CEO comes in and goes, hey, you know what? He's the CEO. He's not the executive director anymore, or the director of finance is now the CFO. Those naming conventions don't apply anymore. Guess what we have to do? Come back. You know what? Not a lot of flexibility in changing these kind of, like I said, board policy 16, which is procurement manuals. It causes a lot of administrative duplication and a lot of oversight. I can tell you internally, looking at this thing, there's meetings that have to happen between departments. They have to agree on things just because it follows policy, where it can be handled in a more efficient manner. So part of it is, and this is kind of the key recommendations, that the first thing I want to do, subject to this committee's kind of go ahead, is that going through and I've kind of started working on it, is working kind of top to bottom, looking at the bylaws. The bylaws aren't actually that bad. The bylaws are only about, 12 pages. Starting with the bylaws and seeing, hey, what the power of the bylaws are. And some of the bylaws are a little wonky too. The bylaws are supposed to be things like the Constitution, like I said. There are very few changes. But you have issues in the bylaws where you say, well, these are the bylaws, this is the firm rights of the board, and you're like, that's great. However, the board of directors can just vote and change it. So it's kind of like, well, why are they the bylaws then? What if you can just change it and change it? So it's kind of like, well, why are they the bylaws then? What if you can just change it that quickly? The bylaws should be kind of stand the test of time. Yeah, are they going to be things you look at? These are kind of more internalized. You provided the guidelines or the playbook for team to follow. They run the plays based on what you're telling them. And then also working towards and stripping down kind of internal government, because you don't need four things. Recalibration of operation and the delegation of authorities, because there's a lot of things that, because we have committee meetings, the policies kind of don't talk to each other. It gives some power to committees like this, but does it really have the power to do things, that it has to go back to the board? There's a lot of question marks in here about that, and I'm trying to clean that up. And then also there's updates to existing policies, and I'm going to be kind of talking about this as more as that in this, if the committee likes my proposal, that from time to time, because the bus has to keep on moving forward, that there are going to be changes to certain board policies, because of OIPA's recommendations, changes of various items and aligns vertically. But it doesn't talk about the interaction between the two. What's my role compared to the CEO's role compared to the independent auditor? Independent auditor is independent, but what does that really mean? How independent is that from the CEO? And how do the various kids play in the sandbox together? And it's not necessarily it's to make it less confrontational, that everybody knows their roles and their definitions. So that's something I want to look at as well, and provide proposals so this committee can weigh in, and ultimately the board can see if they like it or not. So kind of moving on here, if I can hit this button, is just to show you. So these are all the board policies, and you can see how they're written. they were written in 2003 where you had the first view that a new board policy to kind of plug that little hole there. And coming in, or anybody new coming in, as board members change, CEOs change, general counsels change, staff members change, it's very hard to kind of figure out what goes where. And I'll show you and in the next slide. I broke this down into themes. If you just take the first one and the first column to the left, there's a structure. 1, 2, and 4, when these were initially written, they kind of flow and those kind of things. But then if I was someone who kind of goes, well, hey, explain the structure and guidance or governance of SANDAG, you'd have to know it's 1, 2, 4, 13, 17, 26, 39, and 41, just to talk about the structure of SANDAG. Next column, financial, board members, members of the public, legal, to figure out, hey, are we complying with one thing or another, because they're kind of jumbled up. So my idea is that once, if the committee likes this idea, is that I come back with the bylaws, you give the green light, that looks good. Now that I have the overall constitution, I can go based on that and propose restructuring of each of these different sections. And you go, hey, you know what, I like what you're doing for structure and governance, let's good, put that to the side, and I'll work and come back to you for each of these. And then once we have agreement from the board and the thumbs up, then we could come back with a consolidated, we replace the prior bylaws and the board policies and come back with the new policies that strip down. And this is just a fair warning to you all that my idea is to probably strip this 400-page document to something that looks more like this. I'm not saying necessarily it's 50 pages, but I'm not saying you all can weigh in and everybody can provide input so we can make it right. But these are the things we're going to come back to you before all this is getting done, because these are time-pressing policy issues for a variety of different reasons. And then, but in the interim, I wanted to propose one change to board policy number 8. Board policy number 8 is kind of the legal section. And there's a lot of words here that I wrote. Lawyers like words. But it's adding a new board policy section here that basically, if we're seeing stuff here that is kind of no-duh, address changes, titles that have changes, typos, grammatical errors, things like that, if we're spotting these and we're identifying them, but coming back to instead of coming back to the board and formally agendizing it, I go over and change that, making those types of changes, and then providing a report to the board within 60 days, and I'll explain why my logic was. A memo, we made these changes to X, Y, Z, and this is the reason why we made the change, and letting you know. And there's a lot of checks and balances here. Unilaterally, I can't come back and make these changes to the things, because let's say I go rogue and I decide to think, oh yeah, that's legal, I'm going to make all these changes, or that's a technical thing. And it's like, that's not really legal or technical, it's kind of outside of bounds. I have to get the CEO vision to it with more updates coming in the future. And these are kind of the next steps. I kind of laid them out. If the recommendation is good, we'll take it to the board to kind of give our seal of approval about adding that section 4.5 to allow the ministerial cleanup, providing the interim policy maintenance, coming back with various staff will come back with the highlighted board ones, presenting my proposed revised bylaws, getting the thumbs up on that, then coming back to you with a targeted approach for how to kind of recategorize and strip this down and make it a little more easy and manageable for everybody to handle. I'll take questions.
Any technical questions before we go to the public? I see none. Let's go to the public, Michael. Thanks, Teddy.
If you'd like to comment on your online, please raise your hand now. Chair in person, we have 3, and we have 2 online. First is Cesar Javier, followed by Truth. This is item 5.
From our understanding, thank you, Mr. Presenter. Thank you, SANDAG. I think we have reasons to believe that modernization, the language used here, is parallel to our U.S. Constitution, a governance, a process, which is a universal pattern The bylaws that we are talking about perhaps is the result of this audit on performance and fiduciary effort. Performance, fiduciary are strongly correlated to the bylaws, or vice versa. And thank you for that idea as presented, because ultimately, bottom line is to avoid this. About mobility and circulation of people, but rather in totality, survival. A clean planet, healthy people. Correct, Madam Aguirre? For example, what bylaw or provision would we put in, written, to address priorities like crime?
Thank you. Next is Truth, followed by Allegedly Audra.
Thank you.
Item 5.
For the record, Manny kept Ivy Council in dark as an MIA mayor. It only took yet another six-figure failing attorney to point out the mistakes that I already pointed out a year ago, including the old Sandegg address. Administrative burden and duplication wouldn't ever happen if you all just quit screwing up. You know, maybe hire a proofreader. You could hire me. And so I'd like you to quit blaspheming the Constitution when, at the last public safety meeting, Nazi Kevin verbally threatened and censored the public from saying whatever he didn't personally like. It was weak and reminded me of Communist Sean Rivera. It's disgusting. For the millionth time, where are the policies on board misbehaviors and ethics? You've had several major verbally violent incidents be perpetrated by board members, including Manny. Does Sandegg believe itself to be above public accountability? We're going to prove that that is not so. This board doesn't even follow its policy on public outreach accessibility by having meetings in different cities. But you know, you guys can post that agenda anywhere, right? So you can put new themes and colors on them, but policies not abided by are still pointless and toothless. Example, at the last meeting, Lisa said, we make it fit. And it's okay to skate a little bit. So untransparent and dirty. Is that how public agencies work? Talk about corrupt. Properly represented what this agency's been missing when he said, if we're operating within the policies.
Allegedly Audra, followed by Paul the Bold Online. This is item 5.
I don't know what you just said. Dirty. That's a good one. Yeah, you guys play dirty. Play super dirty, and then you expect everybody else to play super clean, otherwise you're going to become a criminal. And then talking about internal controls. You guys can't even run meetings legally. You have gotten too far. Your time is illegal, but you're just blatantly, proving it right now because you're playing dirty, right? You're like, it's like, who wants to play in that game? You guys wouldn't play a game if you knew it was rigged. We sit here, it's like totally rigged. Everything is inverted. We're here to help you. We're here to give you guys public safety. Now, you're here to get us out of our cars and totally control our movements, make sure people are homeless. You guys are doing fantastic. People are dying left and right, or just, being arrested. Donation. He's being charged with a felony and is in Las Colinas right now, right? Money well spent. Trying to go into one of those diversion programs. They're so profitable. It's like, oh my gosh, what a great position to be in, right? Like, you guys can just sit up there and say fuck you to the people that you're supposed to represent, But as long as you feel good. They're such an eyesore, too. It's good that we move them around. You know what I mean? We don't want people seeing that, especially if they're coming into the convention center. Like, people wouldn't come if they could really see what's going on, right? But it's nice. It's like the city of San Diego, they just walk over.
Sorry about that. No wonder Sandegg does so many kooky things. Who has time to read a 400-page manual along with all the other stuff they have to read? Until slide 2, there are three areas for improvement are highlighted. But the big area of improvement is left out. Fraud, waste, and abuse, for instance, are sole sources. And contracts which limit the number of bidders being used is correct, or do these things simply steer Sandag into using high-priced contractors who don't do the work right? Like the recent wall stabilization project, the bikeway project that needed a $5 million time extension. Are contingency fees proper, or is Sandag just giving out money? Maybe the state can do an audit and find out. Incorrect titles and addresses is always a risk. Sometimes I see procedures with, quote, or successor, unquote, which is at least slight improvement while correction is underway. Technical procedures are useful if staff run into tech problems. Government procedures won't help there. I suggest you include a text summary along with the government's procedures with a link to complete, well-indexed technical guide. Redundant content is a problem where it exists, it needs to be checked for accuracy or removed. One way around this would be a link or reference to the correct procedure number. Slide 3,
Thank you, your time has expired. Our last public comment is Gambler. This is item 5. Gambler, yourself muted.
Hello, how are you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Now, the county supervisors will make sure that the registrar is making reasonable effort. Well, now I filed a bunch of PRRs, whatever the hell it is, to verify the fact that they had it. And I'm going to ask them to go ahead and do that before they certify the election. Or they can do it after, and then we can identify that our elections are bullshit in San Diego. That we've been hiding fraud. Trying to throw people in jail for exposing it. Putting them on hold for 6 years for exposing it, right? We're about to go in and see that, or we're not, because the people don't really give a shit. But I do. And I'm not going to stop until I find out whether or not you've been allowing people to commit fraud and covering it up. Because our elections. We can monitor all the ballots coming in, and then we could add them at the end with one quick move.
Thank you, your time has expired. That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Very good. Okay, member, yes, supervisor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me start off, Teddy, by thanking you for being proactive and initiating this. I really appreciated looking at the comparable examples that you brought, and obviously I think the common ground we can all find is that we want to be more efficient and effective, so I appreciate the effort. Now, specific to the 3 areas that you're proposing, I absolutely agree. It's a no-brainer for me. Update addresses, update titles if they don't efficient. The only area where I continue to have concerns is around what is considered substantive versus non-substantive policy change. And I'm glad that you brought up the example of the, when you just started, we were looking at the DDE policy language, and we were talking about what's legal compliance and what isn't. So how we interpret it, legal compliance is a gray area that I think that I, for one, would like to have more say, and I would like that to come to the board. There was an executive order that talked about equity, and there was a move to change policy, board policy, what was it, 25, to remove the word equity. I mean, that would have been a huge change in the work that we do, especially around environmental justice, social equity, data collection, public participation, protected classes. So, as I mentioned before, I think I could support moving forward with the technical and with even the organizational changes as they relate to names of departments and titles, but substantive policy, even the wording can make a huge difference. So I would support moving forward with just the two that I just mentioned.
So it's a legal compliance one that you're.
Yeah, because that could you know, once you find the decision and want to make the recommendation, but I wouldn't want it approved until it comes to us, rather than you approving it and then bringing it as a request through a memo that we may or may not get via email. And for purposes of transparency as well, we don't want to make these decisions, say closed doors, but you know, at the administrative level, without giving the public an opportunity to comment on these substantive policy changes. And wording does matter when it comes to specific areas that we are leading on in the vacuum of what we're seeing coming out of this administration.
Supervisor Gary, I really appreciate that comment. I think the DBE issue it was a very unique issue, and it was something that I think it wasn't necessarily a purely illegal change that we're talking about here. There was discussions about that. Heck, when I was at my old place, there was a meeting with Sandag was included, but with all the agencies, with all their legal counsel talking about how to handle that, and there wasn't a definitive that was a change in law. I think where I'm talking about here, there, and I think the lawyers in the room attest, and it's probably something that's actually kind of rare that I'll come with a legal compliance. It's more of a, literally, sometimes in the statute sections, they'll change it from 123, statute 123 to 4, they've renumbered it 456. Those are kind of the factual changes, because I agree with you. Something that was like the DBE issue, that is not a legal compliance change. That is a policy decision that the agency would have to make. I will tell you this, for me personally, I would value my job too much to make that arbitrary change or unilateral change on my own. I think the CEO, and I'm going to speak for Mario as the CEO, that I think if I came to him and said, hey, this change.
Technical language or numbering, I mean, is there some way that you can distinguish? Well, and just put not the
formatting edits, right? That's what we're talking about. But in this, like your second day here, but that would have been a substantive change that the claim was made. It was an example from all of our documents. That gives me pause, and I want, moving forward, those types of substantive changes to come to us. I don't want to
I have a suggestion, if Supervisor, if you're okay with this, if maybe I align language with changes in local, state, or federal law, and then maybe put a comma after that and mirror the language which are non-substantive in nature or grammatical, or maybe I can present something that's in something to the extent that is for grammatical or editing changes.
Which, and in the meantime, we can move forward with the 2 other bullet points.
Sure, or I can come back to the next board, maybe not next board meeting, but the following board meeting or next board meeting, which is a proposed revision to that, and see. I mean, we can agree to it here.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So we 2 bullet points and put a pause on the 3rd.
So was it that Mayor Wells and the Mayor
Or a subcommittee that would be quarterly, or have this board be quarterly to bring all of these changes to one place, go through them like a workshop, flying anything that might be politically sensitive, and then.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the matter as set forth above with the additional language added to legal compliance to substantive. And by the way, it's going to come to the board within 60 days anyway. So if we ever, so we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. So if it comes to the board and we ever see any of us that, oh, this is including, some kind of substantive policy change in a board member's opinion, we could always potentially revise this. But for me, it's I don't want to do what I respect what Miller Wells' intention was with what he said, but I don't agree with it because that's the job I want them to do. I want them to go through all the grammatical changes. I don't think it's 98%. I think it's 99.99999, probably 100%. We'll never have an issue because using the strong brains that they have, they're not going to err on the side of trouble and put substantive policy stuff in. Right. It's in order to try to keep them compliant. It's a compliance issue. We're trying to stay compliant as much as possible for our agency and move forward. But still, we'll get the disclosure. Anybody wants to go through it can go through it anytime they want.
And the report, I'd like the report to be, an item, not just a report that we get separately in our emails. In the 60 days, is that was intended?
Well, I was trying to we could send a memo. Mario and I could jointly send a memo that's to all the board members. It's to try to kind of reduce the bloat that's on this thing. Because if we come back to you, let's say the address thing, if you itemize it, we can lay it out and say, hey, we changed this thing, then you have to hear it, or maybe put it on. We're trying to reduce the bloat that the board.
No, I totally get that. I'm just saying that instead of it coming to us in a memo in our emails, it should come to the public too. So it should be an item on the board agenda. But yeah.
Right. So I would change my motion to make that clear because I wasn't clear about that until you edified me there. So, and I understand what our council is trying to do, but I don't think that addresses the concerns of the other board members. So I agree with you. So I would say so instead of it coming back as a report to the board summarizing any such updates.
Very good. And Supervisor, would it be good if we added the word non-substantive into that so that it can be handled non-substantive into that so that it can be handled? Discussion that we've had, knowing that it will come back to the board, who would tag anything that seemed to be implicating policy and anything that we didn't want.
Yes, so if it's under technical corrections, non-substantive, grammatical, or formatting edited, I'd be okay with that.
So say that again. So
under technical corrections?
No, under the legal compliance. Language with changes in local, state, or federal law, not including any substantive.
Also updating titles and that it come back to the board within 60 days as a consent item. I'm okay with that, but anything related to the changes in local.
What we're trying to do is clarify today, and I'm asking you what would make you language under the legal compliance, aligning language with changes in local, state, or federal law, not including any substantive, legal, or policy changes.
But my question continues to be, will that decision be made administratively at any point?
No,
I want clarity. Thank you.
No, it's made very clear that it comes back to the board.
So if it includes what you just, I don't want to repeat it again, but if it includes that, it would come to the board and then it would be
in 60 days, and everything that's done within those 60 days in all these three categories would come to the board in a consent agenda item, which any of us could pull.
Motion has set forth, and I just think where we're at procedurally is that we would need a second so we could vote.
Second.
Very good. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, that passes unanimously. Good work, Teddy. We did something like this with our work plan in our city. Year after year, patchwork, it was getting fatter and fatter and more complicated. Now it's streamlined and the staff can use it as a to-do list. It's much easier for them to keep into compliance and know the values and the priorities of our council too. So I appreciate all the work that you did for this and that you're going to do for this.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, Chair, and I'll look forward to bringing back to this committee my proposal. So I know you're really excited.
Alright, you guys, I'm gonna go show you how they don't post it here and how this whole meeting was run illegally. How fun is that? They love to just blatantly in your face be dicks because they play dirty. And so it's like, this is where you even sign up. This isn't good enough posting. It needs to be out tens of thousands of dollars to rent each month. But you know, you get this like, so it would have to be on the outside, and they're saying we're having trouble to, you know, have that kind of stuff in here. You know, we have this nice lobby. How special is that? But at closes, and so this outside, out here somewhere. So, not necessarily, well, I mean, actually, I think it would have to be right out here where people would come in, because even if, or if they had some kind of bulletin board that they could put over here in their area, which is this entire, like, section is theirs. So it's like, you know, you could put something right here in this window, you know, just to, because public can walk by right here, but they act like, you know, because they put it at some toll center that's like 30 minutes away. And then even if they wanted to say at that chief's and sheriff's meeting that was taking place yesterday that it was posted at the toll center, it's like you had to post it outside of that building that I had shown you guys on Wednesday. And so this audit committee that is going to take place is also going to be run illegally because they didn't notice it here. And this is the headquarters. So it's like, you can't just go, well, we're just going to post it in some other building that we have. And how do we even know? You know what I mean? Do they take a picture of it to make sure? And so I'm just going to, I feel like, shoot, this is how you take down the government and reverse their stuff. Because they can't even, you know, first of all, hold quorums. And so that business is done illegally. But outside of that, like, I know the county and I'm pretty sure the city of San Diego do post it. But I don't know how many cities outside of that are posting it correctly and noticing the people 72 hours prior to the meeting happening. And this information has to be available 24/7. So like I'm saying, it would have to be here 3 days or somewhere right here where the public can access it 3 days prior to the meeting. And it's just like, so this is kind of how you unravel them, I feel like. But it's crazy how blatant they are, and they're just like, we're going to continue. We put it down at the toll center. It's like, this is your headquarters. This is where you do your business. And this is why people don't know about you, but intentionally so, and that's how you can hide a meeting, is having it posted all the way down in Otay Mesa or whatever. And yeah, so it'll be interesting. Stay tuned. 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll continue to expose the dirty legislation committees, whatever they call them, legislative bodies, that are making these decisions on our behalf, talking about transparency, right, and accountability and compliance. Oh, they're like, we're not going to comply. You know what I mean? It's like the law enforcement the other day that they're like, we're not going to, you know, we'll check it out. So, I mean, next time, you know, someone wants to tell me I'm doing something, I'm going to quit. Let me get back to you on that. I'm going to figure out if what you're saying is true. So I'm out of here, right? And then I'm sure, you know, they'll probably assault me again. It's fine. And then I will be to blame for it. You know, they got to create their criminals and stuff. So, anyway, never a dull moment in San Diego. So stay tuned and stay classy. God